This podcast discusses real-life crimes and law enforcement matters. It may include detailed descriptions of criminal activity, traumatic incidents, and other content that could be confronting or distressing, particularly for victim survivors. Listener discretion is advised. If you find any of these topics upsetting, please consider whether this content is right for you and seek support if needed.
Welcome back to WA Police Confidential, the official weekly podcast of the Western Australia Police Force. I'm one of your hosts, Joey Catanzaro.
And I'm Sergeant Nate Gilmore.
And I'm Maya Grieve.
And this week, we're going to reveal possibly the most deadly ingredient that's ever been found in a breakfast muffin. Stay tuned. We'll let you know.
Broome Detectives are going to be on the phone later and they're going to give us a serve.
They sure are.
Later on in the podcast, Nate and I talked to Sergeant Steve Millar about an incident which saw him fighting for his life.
Yeah, and look, he recently received a Bravery Award for that particular incident, and I think it shows, and we won't say too much now, but he had some help surviving that incident. Blue family all the way.
And later we'll be joined by Canning Vale Police who have a unique case.
Such a unique case.
To discuss. Find out more later.
It might be pink.
And Claire Sienta will be joining us with It's Probably Bad News.
It almost always is, unfortunately.
We've also got your history fact for the week, so stay tuned.
And I think it has something to do with like silver doubloons or coins. Very pirate-esque in my memory, but who knows? We'll find out later.
This is Confidential.
You're listening to WA Police Confidential. Sometimes the best way to avoid police is to zip it, literally. Canning Vale cops made a rather unusual discovery in recent weeks, trying to track down a suspect. We're joined by Acting Sergeant Dan Lawton. Dan, what happened?
Yeah, so it was a slightly strange morning. We went to an address that is quite well known to us. We're looking for two people that were on a warrant. When we went inside the address, there was a gentleman that was lying on the bed who was later charged with providing false details and obstructing police officers because he didn't want to tell us who he was.
Mm-hmm.
And while we were in the address, there was also a female that we were looking for. While my colleague was dealing with this gentleman who was lying on the bed, I nearly tripped over a suitcase that was lying on the floor, just randomly in the middle of the room. Suspicious, slightly. A bright pink suitcase as well.
Indeed. No one has those.
So I went to initially move the case to get it out of the way for colleagues that were coming in. Thought, this feels a bit heavy. This doesn't feel quite right. And this wasn't a normal travel suitcase. This was a very small hand luggage suitcase.
No.
So yeah, I couldn't also find the zip as well, because as it turns out, this young lady had zipped herself into the suitcase.
No way.
That's what she alleged.
So you immediately cracked the case.
You could say that.
Is this one of the bigger cases you've encountered?
Well, arguably, since I've been in Western Australia, it could be. So yeah, we eventually managed to find where the zips were on said case. Opened the case, and inside was a female of very slight stature who managed to kind of contort herself into a very small space.
Wow.
So, yeah.
The body worn was quite hilarious. Have a listen to this.
Hello, mate. You okay? Oh, look at that. Look at that. Look at that. That's funny, isn't it? Keisha, well, you're under arrest too.
Okay, so Dan, you're from the UK?
I am indeed, yeah.
I was going to say UK or Joondalup, one of the two.
Well, yeah. Heathridge, right?
Heathridge, yeah, exactly. South London.
Butler.
So how does that sort of equate with your police experience in the UK before you transitioned over here?
I've never found anybody in a suitcase before, so it's quite incomparable. Searching has never been my strongest suit if I'm looking for something very small, but fortunately this wasn't something very small. It was a human being in a suitcase, so it was probably, it gave us a few laughs anyway. It was on the lighter side of policing, so to say.
Large pink suitcases. Yep, very
Large
good.
pink suitcases.
Maya, I mean, look, again, as the slightly younger host here, Is this is there a TikTok trend that I'm missing about people locking themselves in suitcases, or is this also bizarre to you?
This is also bizarre to me. I haven't seen anyone lock themselves in a suitcase, but you
maybe
never know.
Maybe it's a new thing.
Maybe she's a trendsetter,
Maybe
trailblazer. For
Yeah,
it.
yeah. Well, that hasn't the circus has just come to town, hasn't it?
It has,
It
and also
has?
last episode we interviewed a police officer, fantastic guy, who used to be in the circus. Grew up in the circus, in fact. Have a
Right.
listen if you haven't heard that one.
Fair enough.
Yep.
Well, it does mean that every search now, I'm going to have to start opening every single suitcase in every single house, which is going to
Nice
slow,
and thorough.
yeah, slow things down a bit. But
Dan, did the suspect give you any explanation after you've discovered her? Or?
no, not at all. I think she was just as surprised as we were when I managed to get her out of the suitcase. I did actually ask her how she managed to get herself in and whether somebody had assisted her in zipping it up. She did maintain throughout the whole thing that she zipped herself into the suitcase. So, yeah, my concern also was the fact that should she not be able to get out of the suitcase, nobody knew she was in there. So it could have gone horribly wrong. But fortunately, in this case, literally, she might not. She probably won't do that again.
Well, I mean, it's almost like a customs thing, is that did you pack your own suitcase, man?
Yeah.
Do you have anything you wish to declare?
Yeah, maybe that's why she was going down that line. Yeah, yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's crazy. Okay, cool. And do you think, I mean, obviously it sounds like the suitcase was quite full with her in there. There was no legitimate travel plans or anything like that.
Nothing at all.
She didn't sort of,
Nothing at all. But she had been on warrant for a good couple of months, so potentially she's already been abroad and come back again.
Wow.
Who knows?
Moral of the story. Is there a moral to the story of this one, Dan?
We'll always find you.
Yeah.
We'll always find you. That's the moral of the story.
Were there any kind of other options of how you would potentially have gotten her out?
Well,
of
I suppose
this?
we could have just pulled out the handle and wheeled her out to the car. That was another option.
She was
but,
already in custody.
She's
right?
already in custody at that point, yeah. It was the most surprising arrest. I'll give you that. It was the most surprising arrest of my career.
And last thing for me, did she remark upon the spacious, clearly at least premium economy pod that she was placed into whilst under arrest?
No, surprisingly,
The
she
back of the
didn't.
van?
I think
No?
she was more annoyed that we'd managed to uncover her hiding space, which, let's face it, she's probably been using for years without us ever finding her. So, yeah, on to the next one.
Sight. Yeah.
Acting Sergeant Dan Lawton from Canning Vale Police Station, thank you so much to you and your team. And it's safe to say that this case is now closed.
Well, one last thing, actually, now I think about it. Obviously, the world this week is mourning the passing of Dolly Parton. I feel like she would have potentially had a big pink suitcase. Just, a big, loud, beautiful personality. Bedazzled. And so, what does that mean?
Bedazzled, like when you put little sequins all over it.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, here's a song for you, Dan, and I guess because you guys are working 9 to 5, and this one's for you and in memory of Dolly Parton.
Welcome back to Confidential. Just when you think you've seen it all, a seemingly ordinary breakfast item serves up a surprise nobody ordered. We're hungry to know more, so Senior Constable Ben Lucas from Broome Detectives joins us to serve the details. Ben, what did you find in this breakfast order?
We found approximately 3.5 grams of methamphetamine secreted between the bacon and egg of the bacon and egg McMuffin meal.
Whoa. Okay. All right. Hold on. Let's rewind just for a second, if we can. So, was this was it a random stop, or how did you come to be? I guess inspecting the muffin, the meth muffin.
Yeah, it certainly wasn't random. So, as part of an ongoing operation targeting the sale and supply of illicit drugs in the West Kimberley, Broome Detectives were conducting surveillance of a target address. A vehicle was observed pulling into the an address of interest, and a male was sighted walking to the house, and the vehicle drove away. That male was collected a short time later. Police from the Broome Detectives office conducted a vehicle stop a number of streets away, and the occupants in the vehicle were subjected to a search pursuant to Section 23 of the Misuse of Drugs Act. The basic searches of the occupants of the vehicle, a search of the vehicle was commenced, and a bag of hot, fresh chicken treat was located on the rear floor between the driver's and the passenger seats of the vehicle. That bag was found to contain fresh, hot, warm, lovely smelling chicken treat.
Yum.
But at the bottom was a cold, discarded McMuffin burger, McMuffin, that had been secreted at the bottom of the bag. That obviously drew our attention, and when it was unwrapped, it was found to contain that clip-sealed bag containing the methamphetamine.
Okay, I have questions. Number one, what time was this roughly?
It was during the afternoon of Thursday.
Well, straight
20th of
away,
August.
suspicious, because that was a McMuffin. What were they doing with the McMuffin in the afternoon?
Yeah, obviously been discarded, and it hadn't been consumed, so it was cold, and it was wedged in between the hot food. So
Also suspicious.
very suspicious.
Who leaves a McMuffin behind, for starters? Also, was it? You said egg and bacon, which is clearly the inferior muffin of the two, because sausage McMuffin, as we all know, is the best muffin going.
I get a bacon and egg and a sausage and egg, so
okay.
Double whammy.
Yeah, go both.
Okay, all right. So, okay, I will say, do you think that there's any chance of, I guess, any redeeming qualities for the crooks involved given that they clearly recognised what we should all recognise here in Western Australia and hopefully one day the rest of the world, chicken treat is actually the best fast food going around.
Most definitely. That's one of the only fast foods in Broome.
Fair enough, but how good is it?
Very popular.
Yeah.
Ben, is this one of the weirdest places you've found meth?
It caught us all by surprise. Yep.
Okay, meth burger. So I'm thinking there's a few things, and I'm wondering if maybe you guys had any thoughts at the time or back at the station, but I've got did you find any secret herbs or spices with it? Did you sort of
No,
charge them and then ask them if they wanted fries with that?
I thought that was a funny packet of salt, but it's obviously meth.
Ooh, yeah, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
I'd be more like, they got my order wrong again.
Certainly more than they'd expected.
That's interesting. It's very interesting. And I guess, look, I mean, we are talking about drugs, so it's very serious. And clearly, if it was Hungry Jack's, of course, it wouldn't be drugs; it'd be the burglars are better at Hungry Jack's.
Definitely better. Unfortunately, we don't have page shows up here.
Yeah, fair. Okay. So I guess cautionary tale. These people are facing serious charges now.
Yeah, so the adult male was arrested and charged with possession with intent to sell a supply of that prohibited drug, and the adult female was released after a series of questions.
Meth is obviously very damaging, especially in our regional communities. What's your message to those out there that are peddling this stuff?
Obviously, it's not acceptable within the community. It is a scourge on society, and I'll always be looking over your shoulder because we're anywhere, anytime.
Destroys lives and breakfast items.
McMuffins.
Yeah, ruins everything, really, doesn't it?
Really damaging the reputation there.
Yeah. Well, Just Desserts is probably what we're looking at here. I
probably should
reckon.
have stuck to dessert.
Mate, thank you so much to you guys in all seriousness up in Broome and in the Kimberley in general. We know that it can be a really dynamic policing environment, really unique, has its unique challenges, this being just one of them. A thank you with a lot from us here at Police Confidential.
Thank you, guys. And we'll keep up the good work.
This is Confidential.
You're listening to WA Police Confidential. A routine welfare check in Gosnells quickly turned into every police officer's worst nightmare. When officers entered a bedroom to check on the welfare of a man in crisis, the situation escalated without warning. Within moments, Sergeant Steve Millar found himself fighting for his life. Steve, you join us today. recent recipient of a Bravery Award. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks. For
Tell
talking to
us
me.
what happened on that night back in October 2021.
Well, obviously we're coming back a good 4 or 5 years ago now, so it's still quite. Well, I still remember everything pretty straightforward. It was one of those routine sort of jobs, I suppose, that everybody gets. It's a standard welfare check that unfortunately is a dime a dozen, and it's in this case it was the caller was a roommate of a man who was, we found out later, is very mentally unwell. And the initial call came through as if they wanted police to come and help evict him from the address, which unfortunately is not. It's what we get a lot, but not quite our job to actually do that. So we spoke to him, and then worked out very quickly that this might be more than that. It's an actual mental health situation. So he made reports of his roommate was threatening to burn the house down and just little things like that, which is a little bit more than just a tenancy dispute, I'd say.
Yeah. So in hindsight, do you look back and all those kind of comments and those bits of information kind of make sense now as to how the situation played out?
Well, I think at first, and so in this situation, again, we're like, oh, it's another roommate that just wants us to evict their tenant. But then again, as soon as we started speaking, you kind of switch on a little bit more, because as soon as you those key words, when he starts talking about mental health and again threatening to burn a house down, that kind of changes everything a little bit. So
you get there on the day. What do you see?
So we originally met up with the roommate around the corner and got a little bit more information before we went in. When we went to the house, there was 4 of us for the actual address. The front door was locked, and the housemate led us around the back to let us in through the back. There was nobody answering to the door. We had no idea actually who was inside. All we knew was that he was inside somewhere. Again, at this point, it's still just your standard welfare check job, in which case our initial thoughts were to make contact with this fella and have a chat with him and try and work out what the next steps were. So we've gone through the back of the address. It's a very, I suppose, best way. It's like a cluttered address. There's stuff everywhere. We made our way through the back to the front door, kind of reversing it, I suppose, as you'd normally go through a house. And it was pretty clear that this male was in the front bedroom. Yeah.
As you mentioned, you were with a team of people. When the situation escalated and you realised that it wasn't potentially going to just be a conversation to get this guy out of the house, how important was it to have kind of your team behind your back?
Yeah, it's good because it was a bit of a unique situation, this one, because so we kind of amalgamated into night shifts. So there was 3 of us from my team, and then there was another officer from Canning Vale. The good part about it is that for a lot of us, the 3 of us had worked together, or 2 of us, me and Harry, offside, had worked together for a long time before that. So we kind of knew a lot about what each other were thinking before we even went into the house. So we'd go to a lot of different jobs, and we could resolve stuff without even really thinking about, like, we just kind of knew what the other person was going to do. So yeah, that teamwork part of it makes a huge difference, especially with jobs like that, because when you can kind of know what the other person's about to do, you can resolve stuff a lot quicker without even having to actually verbalize anything, really. And you know what the other person's doing.
Yeah,
so.
of course. In this scenario, you were put in a position where at one point you were unconscious, and Harry has come through and basically taken the suspect's kind of
attention.
Attention on you
Yep.
to himself. What was that situation like?
It was daunting because obviously when we first opened the door, again, when we've opened the door and found this, he's kind of barricaded himself inside the room. And initially it was just 2 of us that went in, and I've kind of gone into the corner of the room, and one of my offsiders was talking to him, trying to just work out what was going on and calm him down. And even at that point, it's still, for me, it was still just a heightened individual. So I was looking at different threats, but I wasn't really picking up on some of the stuff that was around the room. Like I was looking at threats that were down by his feet, and how if we had to go hands on with him, how we're going to safely get him out of the room without hurting him, without hurting anybody else, really. So at that point, I was my whole role was just to kind of be the third eye in the room. By the time it went a little bit pear-shaped, I found myself on the ground. Time sort of slowed, I suppose. I think the whole incident was about 1.5, 2 minutes long.
Would have been the longest
from
minute and a
contact
half of
to
your
finish.
career.
Yeah.
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 So your team, yourself and your colleagues have confronted this individual in a room. He's barricaded himself.
Yeah. So he's managed. So we've knocked on the door, and then at that point we've heard, I suppose, like the door still being shut, so we could hear movement inside. So we knew he was inside, and I could hear furniture just kind of being moved around. So when George, who one of my offsiders, has opened the door and made initial contact, he's kind of barricaded himself around furniture. So to that point, he's kind of the lead officer at that point. So his whole job is to talk to this individual, try and calm him down, try and work out a way that we can, again, it's tactical communication. We're trying to resolve the situation without using force, without going hands-on or anything.
It's important to note that is a really important skill that police officers have, is to de-escalate situations, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, people think that you can just, if you look from the outside, you're going to kick the door in. Everyone's going to go hands-on. We have a wrestle, and then everyone high-fives and we go home. But the reality is 90% of jobs, your first level of force is going to be that A, physical presence, and B, the ability to actually communicate with people. If you don't have that, then you're always stuck at that high level. And yeah, you've got to work on your communication. That's one of the main things for being a police officer, I'd say.
We can skip forward. The communication side of it failed that night. Or it didn't work, I should say, is a better way of wording it. And it resulted in you being pretty seriously injured.
Yeah. So the male has managed to, he's picked a knife up from in front of him. And I don't think any of us picked up where that knife actually was at first. Again, we were looking around everywhere else. Now at that point, I had my OC spray out anyway, because as I was clearing through the house, it was kind of that easy threat just in case something was there. So I've deployed my OC spray, and that's had no effect on him. If anything, it's kind of made him angrier. At that point, he's picked up a bookshelf, and he's hit me over the head with it, which has forced me backwards. My offsider is kind of like he's stayed where he was to that point, and then the male's come over the top with his knife. I've put my arms up, and then he's stabbed me through the tricep. And then I think he's got me on the body armor as well.
Wow.
At which point I think my camera shuts off. So
What were you kind of thinking at that time?
So when I first went down, like I realised I'd been stabbed, but I didn't know. It's weird. I didn't have any feeling, as in there was no pain, there was no anything like that. The adrenaline, they talk about like when you're in a heightened situation where you can kind of see everything through like a little tunnel, and that's exactly what it was. I was kind of hyper focused on one thing. And to be honest with you, for what felt like, it was probably 3 or 4 seconds, but what felt like minutes, I couldn't do it. There was nothing I could do. I was on the ground. And at that point, I was looking at my arm. I could realize that there was no, like, I couldn't get this fella off or do anything to stop him. At that point I thought I was dead. So I thought that was it.
And then you had your partner, Harry, come through.
Yep.
And what did he do? How did he kind of...
So I didn't know it at the time. I've seen the body-worn camera footage since. So Harry, thank God he was there. He's kind of pushed past and he's fired a taser to try and taser this fella. But unfortunately, knowing now, so from the coroner's court inquest, we know now that the taser's actually hit and both prongs have connected. But I think they worked out that it missed by about 3 mil to completely incapacitate him, which is nothing. So unfortunately, all that did was cause localised pain. And when you've got someone who's having a psychotic break, we've already shown OC spray wasn't working. Again, the taser was just going to annoy him. So at that point, if nothing else, it's distracted him from me. So Harry's fired off a taser. and then this fella's kind of distracted from me and then gone after Harry.
Yeah. And I mean, like, you don't go to a job thinking that something this horrible could potentially happen to you at all, really, ever. But for Harry to also step in and show his bravery in that aspect of it, that was quite remarkable as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he didn't. You'd like to think that somebody would push through the door, but you don't know until you're put in that situation, do you? And obviously, at that point, Harry's shown that when the proverbial hits the fan, he's rushing in. So whether he knew it or not, I don't know. And honestly, I don't care because he did exactly what he needed to do on that night, which was save me. So, and at that point, it's distracted this fella from me. And then Harry's kind of, obviously, once he's realised that the taser was ineffective, the males then started chasing him with the knife and swinging wildly for him. So Harry's kind of, again, I've described it many times as parkour. Like it's incredible the amount of rolling and tumbling he could do to get away from a knife-wielding man. He's managed to make it to one end of the room to the other and then back to where I was. And at that point, I've kind of managed to get to my senses. I've got up and realised that this fella's still swinging for Harry. And that's when I've withdrawn my firearm and I've fired 3 times at him.
Wow.
So
It's not really a choice that anybody ever really wants to be put in the position to make. And you had to make it to obviously save your life and your partner's life and the other 2 officers who were there in the house that day. How did you kind of feel after the incident?
I think everything kind of went a bit robotic, to be honest. Again, it's the first step from there was rendering first aid and trying to save this fella, which unfortunately wasn't successful. And then from there, it's going through the process, and it's a very long process for that. I think it's happened about 2:00 in the morning. And then I think by the time I made it back to the station was about 8:00. So we ended up, eventually we had, like everything, the cavalry comes pretty quick from there. So what started with 4 of us ended up with, I think by the time I left that place, there was another 4 cars. Roads had been blocked off, and other officers had come to take carriage of the scene and kind of relieve me and my offsiders. I ended up going to hospital to get my stitches for my arm and my head, and I'd also one of my front teeth had been smashed in. So, and then I believe Harry had hurt his hand as well in the altercation. So it was just a matter of getting that sorted, knowing obviously from there you're going to go through the internal side of things, which rolls around pretty quick.
Yeah, of course. After the incident, how did it feel kind of going back to work? We've spoken before, obviously, and you mentioned that you kind of went back to work as normal and then it didn't kind of hit you till later.
Yeah, like honestly, people would ask me all the time, they go, how are you? And honestly, for like a year, 6 months to 8 months, I'd be like, no, I'm fine. Like no issues, as in like I was comfortable with the situation. I was comfortable with decisions made on the night. I was comfortable with how everybody operated. So with that side of it, I honestly had no real issues in my head for a good 6 to 8 months. And it's history will tell me now it's probably a good year and a half later that everything just slowly built up to the point where I had to take a good 3 weeks off work to try and reset everything a little bit.
And how was that process of kind of, did you have lots of support around you?
Yeah. So like family-wise, I had heaps of support. Work-wise was incredible. Everybody around, I can't speak highly enough of the actual agency as far as that's concerned. And yeah, family-wise was great. I think the biggest thing is it's such a 1% job that nobody really knows how to deal with it. And unfortunately, the only way as an agency we're going to learn how to deal with it is more of them, and nobody wants that. So, yeah, it's as an agency, I can't fault them enough. Everybody checked in on me. Yeah, it was basically, and again, for me, in my head, I was traveling fine, and I was for a good year, no issues at all. So when people say, "Hey, you're traveling," I'm fine. There's no issues. So
And, how important was it for you to go and receive some help once you realised that maybe you weren't as fine as you thought you
yeah,
could
well, I
be?
tried probably. I think maybe about 6 or 7 months in, I worked out that things weren't quite traveling as well as I thought. And there's the little things like they can talk about, like, again, I think I'm quite a calm sort of person, and I found myself I was getting angry easy. Little things that would set me off that shouldn't have set me off, like family and kid stuff. Sometimes, like, instead of being able to talk through it, I'd just explode, and then I'd realize like you're just being irrational, like. And that was probably about 6 or 7 months in. So I reached out and I'd went to go external to get some help. And the biggest issue I found externally was trying to find somebody that understands the actual job. So the biggest issue I had is I went to an external psych to say, look, I'm not sleeping well, trying to deal with it early on. And unfortunately, there might be great people out there. And I think one of the things about psychologists is you got to find the right one for you. And one that might work for some won't work for others. But for me, my first external psych appointment kind of led with like, well, you've just got to like stop seeing the threat in every room. You got to, and unfortunately for officers, you can't do that. Like you've still got to, you've still got to look for, and you've still got to think about the threats, and you've still got to like look at where the issues are when you're going to a job. It's just being able to deal with it before I got to the job, which was one of the hardest things for me. I found probably so I reached out about 8 months ago, and after that first initial external appointment, I wasn't really happy with it. I didn't get what I wanted out of it, and I kind of just put it to one side and went, well, psychology doesn't really work, and I'll just deal with it myself. And unfortunately, I didn't really deal with it myself. I just buried myself back into work, and and just trudged along for another probably 6-7 months. And then, probably I'd say, so this incident was 2021, and I think it would have been, I want to say maybe 2 years thereabouts to the day. I was on a course, and I remember slowly, I was struggling to get out of bed. And I couldn't put it down to anything. Like, so when we were out with the family, things were great and stuff, but I could just feel you're just not firing. And I remember one day I was heading for this course, and the first day I got there and I did it. And then the second day I called in sick because I just couldn't bring myself to get out of bed or anything. And then the third day, that's when everything kind of hit me a little bit. And I realised that things weren't quite right. And so I went in, I spoke to my OIC. It was basically like every OIC's scenario, if they're going to get promoted, I suppose you've got a colleague or you've got a subordinate that comes in and grown man in tears saying, mate, I'm not okay. I need help. And it just came out of the blue for them, obviously, because outwardly I'd be fine. I was going to the jobs, there was no problems. But eventually I realised that was it. I needed something because, again, I wasn't sleeping properly. I found my alcohol use was going up. And I could go, it's fine. Like, I'm just having a beer a night. And I'm not a drinker, really. Like, I like to go out and have a beer with the boys, but I don't drink every night. I could go 6 months to a year without having a drink and there's no issues. Then suddenly I'd find at 8 o'clock at night, I was like, I'll just have a beer. Well, play the PlayStation or something. And then a week later, I was like, I'll just have 2 beers and then 3 beers. And then suddenly it's like, when are you not going to have a beer? So it wasn't really it wasn't a drinking problem as such for like getting drunk or anything, but it was just, again, my alcohol use went up, my anger went up. Everything was just built up to the point. And then I was having like nightmares and things like that. So.
Mm-hmm. And then, you finally got support and, you've been recognised for a Bravery Award for your actions on that day, and Harry's actions on that day and the other officers' actions on that day truly show why people like you need to be in this job.
Thank you.
I think it's important to acknowledge the fact that you recognise that things weren't right, and that you put your hand up and said, I need help. I think there's still that stigma around mental health and you know, if you're not right, especially officers that wear the uniform, they come in, day out, they deal with all the stresses and the challenges, and then it takes a critical incident to push you over the edge. And like you said, you bury yourself in your work and you just keep plugging away. But no, I think it's really important to acknowledge that you made that call, and congratulations on doing that, and then you've bounced back.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
I think you're right. It's one of those things where I think everybody would, if one of their work colleagues come to them and said, "I'm not okay," I would find it very hard to believe there's anybody in this agency that wouldn't go out of their way to help that person. But if you're that person that wants help, that's the hardest part, is to turn around and say, "Hey, I'm not okay. I need some help." And for me, it wasn't necessarily psychology or anything like that. It was the moment I said, "Hey, I need some help." Again, I was getting panic attacks at work. Any jobs at all that became a little bit dicey, I was overthinking things. And as soon as I asked for help and I took that time off work to really reset everything, and I really just took it back to basics, to be honest with you. I went back to training hard, eating clean, and just taking breath when I'm at work, and just trying to, if a job was a little bit dicey or something, learning how to breathe before I actually got to these jobs and things like that. So I think just building that fitness back up and mentally building that mental fitness back up, that's the main thing. So
If today's topics brought up something heavy feelings, or if you or someone you care about is simply going through a difficult patch, please know that you do not have to carry that weight by yourself. Support is available right now, and you can reach out to Lifeline at any hour of the day or night for free, and you can call them on 131114 or visit them on lifelineaustralia.com. And this is Confidential.
And now for the bad news with Claire Sienta. It's pretty much always bad news, unfortunately. Claire, what have we got this week?
Well, thanks for having me, Joey. I've actually got some pretty good news from the Rapid Apprehension Squad this week. Earlier this week, you may have seen we were appealing for public information after an alleged stabbing and home burglary that occurred in Warnbro on Monday, the 24th of August. So 4 men have actually been charged in relation to that aggravated home burglary. It will also be alleged about 11 p.m. on Saturday, the 22nd of August, 4 men attended a residence on Curry Street armed with weapons and attempted to gain entry into that property. So that allegedly happened again on the 24th, a couple of days later. And 2 men, both aged in their 40s, who were home at the time, were physically assaulted and struck by weapons and fists of those alleged offenders. So detectives established that the 2 incidents were linked and they were targeted in nature, and subsequently commenced an operation in response. So with assistance from the other specialist units, they executed search warrants at addresses in Inglewood, Canning Vale, Kelmscott, Perth and Highgate, and apprehended 4 men. So a 26-year-old man from Inglewood and a 23-year-old man from Kelmscott have been charged with 2 aggravated home burglary and 1 attempt to unlawfully kill. So some really serious charges there. A 25-year-old man from Highgate and a 21-year-old man from Allenbrook have also been charged. So they're due to appear at court at a later date.
Thanks, Claire.
This is WA Police Confidential.
All units, the WA Police Force is looking for people. All kinds of people. People into tech, into cardio, into 4-wheel driving, dog people, and horse people. People who like motorbikes, push bikes, planes, helicopters and boats. People who are big on community, helping others and solving true crime. Not just watching it, you know. Ordinary people who are up for doing extraordinary things.
If you could be one of these people, you've found your people. Search Let's Join Forces.
Thank you very much for joining us for another episode of Confidential. Maya,
Yes.
before we get to the history fact, you have some burning questions, maybe even a quiz.
A little quiz, another quiz we're coming in with.
Okay.
So this quiz is, I'm going to call it the fast food quiz.
Okay, well,
How
that
fast
makes sense.
do you know your food?
How fast do you know your food? Okay.
All right. So the first question. How many secret herbs and spices are in the Colonel Sanders original recipe for Kentucky Fried Chicken?
7.
11.
Nate, you are correct.
What? No.
It
You
is
don't-
11.
Seven
There is 11 secret herbs and spices.
But no, isn't it the 7 secrets? No?
You don't get a body like this by not knowing those things.
The
All
Colonel.
right.
We salute him.
Now, what are kids' meals called at McDonald's?
McHappy Meals.
Yes, correct.
Oh, okay, cool. There you go.
Great
Yep,
job.
just a little snack. I call them snacks.
Now, this one is a new restaurant, a new fast food place that's opened up in WA. So, what family restaurant is known for its rodent mascot, pizza, and games?
Meth Burger.
Ooh.
Chuck E. Cheese.
Nate, you are correct. That makes this week's winner Nate.
Nate.
Bing, 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 bing. Like I
Nice.
said, you don't get a body like this by not knowing the fast food facts.
You're McLovin it.
Do
don't
not
you?
argue with me.
Do not argue with you. Okay,
It's
all
just
right.
a
I see what
police
you
thing,
did
isn't
there.
it?
Yeah.
I see what you did
Cups
there.
and donuts.
Nate. Yeah.
History fact.
History.
Your
fact.
history fact, yes. So your history fact for the week, while the WA Police Force was only formally established in 1853, we did have part-time officers from the start of the colony. And by 1841, we did have at least one full-time salaried officer.
Okay.
Yes, that's right. I
One.
believe they were working unpaid at one point in time. The salaried officer's name was Constable John Chipper, and for his big case, it was a bit of a doozy.
Okay.
He investigated a break-in and a robbery at the Perth Treasury, where a chest had been stolen containing £100 of silver coins.
Ooh.
It's around $25,000 in today's money, but more significantly, yeah,
Yeah.
it was
Significantly.
considered the property of the Queen.
Well, we can't have that. But continue. Yep.
So we did say it was a doozy. Chipper, Constable Chipper, he stayed Chipper, arrested a military officer named Private William Longworth,
Mm.
who served some time in Fremantle jail with the alleged mastermind John Wade. That sounds like a very mastermind.
It does.
Name.
Yeah.
Does.
Yep.
John Wade, John Wick, I don't know.
Yeah. Definitely.
After his arrest, Longworth turned Queen's evidence against Wade and testified about their plan to get the Treasury guards drunk to commit the robbery.
Wow.
But even with Longworth's testimony, Wade was found not guilty after an 18-hour trial. The jury found that they couldn't convict him because he was the only witness. In the end, the only person held accountable for the Treasury robbery was the guard who was on duty. He was convicted of being drunk and asleep on the job, and he was sentenced to, get this, 14 years jail.
Oh, whoa.
For being asleep.
Yeah,
and drunk.
and being drunk.
That is wild. I don't know how the other dudes got off, but also, did they get the Queen's silver doubloons back?
It doesn't say.
Doesn't say. They could still be out there somewhere. Maya, you made an interesting point when we were reading this before.
Yeah. I think it would have been a lot easier to be a thief back in the day. It sounds like all you have to do is get people drunk and
Walk right in.
yeah,
Take the coins.
take the coins. And
Yeah.
you're only stealing like $100, not $25,000, you know?
I think one thing that hasn't changed is that the law is the law, and it's still stealing is stealing. But yeah, I agree, Maya. I think no CCTV back then, no electronic records or anything like that, and it'd be very easy to fly under the radar.
Yeah. So, look, if you or someone you know is thinking about getting someone drunk and stealing the Queen's silver, forget about it, because you're not going to get away with it. Not in this day and age. Not if your name's Long Man, Long March, Long Maya, whatever that guy's name was.
The only long you're going to get is a long sentence.
Boom. That's
Yep.
exactly right.
There
There,
you
you go. Yep. And no McMuffins, I'm told, reliably in our correctional facilities. From silver to gold, I'm pretty sure Dolly Parton definitely had a few gold records. Once again, thank you for your service, ma'am. And thank you to all the police officers out there helping us 9 to 5 and 5 to 9.
And next week, we're going to go back to 1932. In the outback, a WA police officer awarded a unique medal. What could it be?
I don't know, but this is confidential.
WA Police Confidential was produced by Joe Gerris, Danny Vanderveer, Lisa Evans and Sam Oo. Sound editing by Joe and Danny and Sam. Cover song by the WA Police Pipe Band and cheesy podcast theme music by Joey Catanzaro. By the way, why just listen to a podcast about policing when you could actually be doing it? Let's join forces.wa.gov.au.